19 years old. No home. No family who wanted her. Just a backpack, a fading phone, and a night shift at a gas station off a highway nobody stopped at unless they had to. Her name was Ivy Marlowe, and this is the night everything changed. The night a stranger left his wallet on the counter and walked out of her life, only to walk back into it in a way she never could have imagined. Ivy had been sleeping in the back of a laundromat for 3 weeks before the gas station gave her a job. The manager, a tired man named Frank, hadn't asked many questions. He'd just looked at her ripped sneakers, her clean but wrinkled shirt, and said, "Can you work nights?" Nobody wants nights. She could. Nights were all she had. The gas station sat on a lonely stretch of Route 9, lit by a buzzing sign and surrounded by nothing but dark fields and the occasional 18-wheeler. Ivy worked from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, ringing up cigarettes and energy drinks, mopping floors slick with rain, and counting the hours until she could close her eyes on a bench in the 24-hour laundromat 2 blocks away. She never complained. Complaining was a luxury for people who had somewhere to go home to. Her family was gone in every way that mattered. Her mother had died when she was 12. Her father remarried a woman who made it clear, in small cruelties and big silences, that Ivy was a guest in her own house. At 17, she left. At 19, she was still leaving, moving from couch to couch, shelter to shelter, until even those doors closed. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself a lot of things at 3 a.m. to stay standing. It was raining the night he came in, an older man, maybe 70, wearing a grey wool coat too fine for a gas station in the middle of nowhere. He bought a bottle of water and a pack of gum, fumbled with his cash, and thanked her twice for no particular reason. "Just me," Ivy said. He studied her for a second longer than felt normal, then nodded, said good night, and disappeared into the rain. 10 minutes later, Ivy found the wallet. It was sitting on the counter, half hidden behind the register where he must have set it down while paying. Worn brown leather, soft with age, heavier than it looked. She opened it, not to take anything, but to find a name, a way to return it. Inside was a driver's license, Walter Hensley. Behind that, an old photograph, creased from years of folding and unfolding. A photograph of a woman who looked, impossibly, like Ivy's mother. Ivy's hands went cold. She turned the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, Eleanor and Walter, 1975. Eleanor was her mother's name. Ivy didn't sleep that night. She sat behind the register with a wallet in her lap, staring at a photograph of a young woman who had her mother's eyes, her mother's smile, standing beside a man who could not be a stranger. She told herself it was a coincidence. Eleanor wasn't a rare name. But something in her chest wouldn't let it go, the way your body knows a truth before your mind is ready to accept it. When Frank came in for the morning shift, Ivy was still there, wallet in hand. "You didn't call the number on the license?" he asked. "I don't have a phone that works past midnight," she admitted. It wasn't the real reason. The real reason was she was terrified of what would happen if she did. She finally called from the payphone outside, one of the last in the county, using the business card tucked in the wallet's fold, Hensley and Associates. A woman answered, brisk and professional, until Ivy explained she'd found Mr. Hensley's wallet. There was a pause. Then, "Please, stay exactly where you are. He'll come himself." Walter Hensley arrived within the hour, not in the rain-soaked coat this time, but composed, urgent, his driver waiting outside. He took the wallet from Ivy's hands like it was made of glass, checking the photograph first, not the cash. "You didn't take anything," he said. It wasn't quite a question. "I wouldn't," Ivy said. Then, because she couldn't stop herself, "Sir, who is the woman in this photo?" His face changed. Something old and painful moved behind his eyes. "That's Eleanor," he said quietly. "The only woman I ever loved. We were engaged, once. Her family didn't approve, said I wasn't good enough, back before I built anything. She left. I never saw her again. I've carried that photo for 50 years. Ivy's voice barely worked. "My mother's name was Eleanor. She died when I was 12. The gas station went silent except for the hum of the refrigerators. "What was her last name?" Walter asked, and Ivy watched a man's entire world hold its breath. "Whitfield. Eleanor Whitfield." Walter Hensley sat down on the plastic chair by the door like his legs had given out. "That was her name," he whispered. "Before she married." Walter didn't leave that night. He sat in the gas station until dawn, and Ivy, exhausted, disbelieving, told him everything. Her mother's early death. Her father's remarriage. The years of being unwanted, unclaimed, invisible. Walter listened like a man being handed pieces of a life he thought was lost forever. He explained what Ivy never knew, that Eleanor had been pregnant when her family forced her away from him, pregnant with a child Walter never knew existed, a child born 9 months later and raised as another man's daughter. Eleanor never told him. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe the family that shamed her into leaving made sure the truth stayed buried. That child was Ivy's mother. Which meant Walter Hensley was not a stranger. He was Ivy's grandfather. A DNA test, arranged quietly the following week, confirmed what the photograph had already whispered the moment Ivy saw it. Same eyes. Same blood. 50 years of separation, closed in one rainy gas station transaction over a forgotten wallet. Walter Hensley was not merely a man in a nice coat. He was the founder of Hensley & Associates, a real estate and investment firm worth well over $200 million. A fortune built from nothing after Eleanor left him. Built, some might say, from the ashes of a broken heart he never let himself heal. He had no other children. No wife. He'd never married. No family left except lawyers, associates, and a will that, until that rainy night, had named a scholarship fund as his sole beneficiary. He rewrote it within the month. Ivy Marlowe, homeless 19-year-old, gas station night clerk, became the sole heir to the Hensley estate, not because of a lucky discovery, but because blood that had been separated by cruelty and shame found its way back through a small act of honesty. She could have taken the cash from that wallet and vanished. Instead, she returned it. You didn't know who I was, Walter told her, weeks later, in the house he insisted she move into. You didn't do the right thing because you thought it would pay off. You did it because it was right. That's exactly the kind of person Eleanor was. The money changed everything and nothing. Ivy still couldn't sleep in silence at first. Years of watching over her shoulder don't disappear because a house has locks and heating. She kept a bag packed by the door for months, but Walter was patient. He didn't try to erase the 19-year-old who'd survived alone. He tried to understand her. They spent evenings looking through old photographs of Eleanor, piecing together a woman neither of them had gotten enough time with. Walter, who lost her to a family's cruelty, Ivy, who lost her to an early death. Grief, it turned out, was something they could finally share instead of carry alone. Ivy went back to school. Not because she had to prove anything, but because for the first time, she could imagine a future worth planning for. She kept working, too, not at the gas station, but eventually inside Hensley & Associates, learning the business from a grandfather determined to know his granddaughter for every year he'd missed. A year later, Ivy drove back to that gas station on Route 9. Frank still worked the counter. The buzzing signs still flickered. She bought a bottle of water, same as Walter had that first rainy night, and left something behind on the counter on purpose this time. A folded check large enough to keep the station's newest night clerk, a runaway 17-year-old named Dana, off the street for good, along with a note. Somebody once told me honesty always finds its way home. I believe that now. Take care of yourself. I am. She never met Dana. She didn't need to. She understood, better than almost anyone, what one small act of kindness at 3 a.m. could turn into. Ivy Marlowe spent 19 years believing she belonged to no one. All it took to change that was a stranger's forgotten wallet, and a choice to do the right thing when no one was watching. Sometimes the family we lost is closer than we think. And sometimes, the smallest act of honesty is the beginning of the biggest homecoming of our lives.